All right. Good evening and welcome to class. Tonight, we'll be spending some quality time looking at how to make decisions and how to solve problems. Remember that in our classes, we always focus on how you can apply this to real life issues and real life situations. I'm glad you're here tonight. I'm glad you have had a good week. Hopefully, I know what it is like to be in sections and then to be in evening classes. But I know you, I know your commitment, I know your dedication, I know your desire to do well. So I'm glad that you're here tonight. In the next few hours, we'll be taking a deep dive into decision making and problem solving. Remember that as a healthcare manager, you are paid to solve problems and also paid to make decisions. But this is the good thing. Problems lead to decisions, and decisions lead to new problems because problems and decisions are actually in a continuous cycle, each giving rise to the other. Every problem requires a decision to be made in order to solve it. And every decision in turn creates new challenges that must be addressed. In essence, therefore, whenever we solve a problem, we are simultaneously making a decision. And whenever we make a decision, we are setting the stage for new problems to emerge. This dynamic relationship between problems and decision places problems and decisions on the same plane, yet at opposite poles, interconnected forces that drive progress in every organization, drive innovation, and drive growth. Without problems, there would be no need for decisions. And without decisions, problems will remain unsolved. It is a navigation that we do every day. And in navigating this very delicate but true course, true leaders are born and effective management is demonstrated. So tonight we'll be looking at what is decision, how do we make decisions, what are problems, and how do we solve problems. So here is the big idea. Leaders and managers, like I said earlier on, are paid to make decisions. We make decisions to solve problems, and our decisions, therefore, create new problems. Remember the cycle: planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. The question will be, what has this got to do with decisions and problem solving? Friends, managers, we plan, we organize, we staff, we lead, and we control. These five core functions of management are so critical. And this is the truth right now. At every single one of these stages, decisions must be made and problems must be solved. From setting goals during the planning phase to allocating resources, assigning responsibilities, and motivating teams, and even to evaluate performances, each function requires thoughtful decision making and effective problem solving approach. Therefore, the ability to make sound decisions and to solve problems efficiently is not limited to any one aspect of this management cycle. It's an essential part of leadership, essential part of management at all levels and in every process. These skills define the differences between managing by reaction and leading with intention. So let me start by defining a problem. What is a problem? A problem is a situation, a condition, or a person that creates uncertainty, difficulty, or challenge. It represents an issue or obstacle that hinders the achievement of a desired goal, objective, or purpose. In essence, actually, a problem is a state of difficulty that requires resolution. However, decision, on the other hand, is the outcome of a thoughtful process that involves selecting a course of action from several available alternatives. If there are no alternatives, decisions are not needed. For instance, you don't decide who your parents are. There are no alternatives. You don't decide the color of your skin. There are no alternatives. You're either black or white. You don't decide those things. But you can decide which school to attend, who to marry, which car to buy, where to live, what to eat, what to wear, because there are several alternatives. It is the process of evaluating options and choosing the best path to achieve a goal or solve a problem. We therefore make decisions because we are faced with choices, and those choices exist to help us address and resolve our problems. But in life, there are two kinds of problems: the technical problems and the adaptive problems. Every problem you're facing right now, every problem you will ever face in life, or as a manager or as a leader, are in these two categories. Technical ones are issues that require specialized knowledge, authority, or expertise to resolve. For instance, repairing your laptop. For instance, IT issues. For instance, servicing your car. These are technical issues. They are often solved by individuals or experts outside the immediate system or team that you run, or even equipping your EHR, for instance, or installing a new equipment in your hospitals. These are all technical problems. But adaptive problems are problems that demand a change in behavior, attitude, or mindset rather than technical fixes. They, for instance, losing weight, watching what you eat, exercising. These are adaptive issues. How long you sleep, how long you spend watching television or watching a program. These are adaptive issues. They are best resolved by the individual or groups directly affected. Friends, why over 80 to 85% of our problems are adaptive, only a very few, 10 to 15%, are technical. So to solve problems, therefore, we have to be creative and innovative. You must go beyond conventional thinking and routine solutions, because creativity and innovation lies at the heart of effective problem solving. But Essence told us some time ago that you cannot solve today's problem with the same mindset that created the problems. So you must see what everyone else have seen, look at the same situation, challenges, and data that others have observed. Then you must think what no one has ever thought about. You analyze it from a fresh perspective, question the assumptions that other people have made, and generate new insights. And finally, you must do what no one else have dared. You take bold, thoughtful actions that others might avoid out of fear, doubt, or complacency. True problem solvers are not limited by existing patterns. They reimagine possibilities, challenge the status quo, and turn obstacles into opportunities. Being creative means finding new connections, while being innovative means turning those ideas into practical solutions that makes a difference. That's why also you can solve problems through the following strategies. One, you find out, you make a diagnosis. You must understand what you're solving. This is the first step in solving any problem. Understanding the problem clearly before attempting to a solution. This involves gathering information, analyzing the situation, and identifying underlying causes rather than just addressing symptoms. That's why you must look closely at the problem, define it clearly, and understand its scope and impact. You must reflect on your past experiences with that problem. Have you encountered a similar problem before? If yes, recall how it was handled, what worked, or what did not work. Compare and contrast. Identify how this problem is similar to previous ones and how it differs. These distinctions can guide your approach. Collect relevant facts. You must gather verifiable data and evidence that are related to your problem. Avoid, please, relying on assumptions or incomplete information, because assumptions lead to frustrations. Then you identify hidden insights in that problem. Ask yourself this simple question: What do I know that isn't explicitly stated? What might be influencing the problem behind the scenes? Effective diagnosis helps uncover root causes, ensures informed decision making, and prevents wasted efforts on superficial or temporary fixes. That's why we spend some time looking at fish diagram, Ishikawa diagram, look at the 5 whys, look at other root cause analysis tools that has brought us thus far in our programming. Then once you make a diagnosis, then you must identify and select a strategy. Friends, once the problem has been clearly diagnosed, the next step is to identify and select the most effective strategy to address it. This phase involves drawing on experience, learning from others, and being open to testing new approaches. Reflecting on past experience, for instance, will help you consider how you have solved similar problems before. What methods or actions worked and why did they work? Learning from others allow you to explore how your colleagues, your peers, your mentors, your employers, your supervisors, or even your organization have tackled comparable challenges in time past. Their successes and failures can offer valuable insight. Accessing available strategies, for instance, will help you to identify different strategies you know or have access to. You analyze their potentials, strengths, weaknesses, and applicability to the current situation. Never ever buy into the lie that there's only one solution to a problem. Every problem has multiple solutions. Then you select the most promising approach. Choose the strategy that appears most likely to produce your desired outcome, given the context, resources, and constraints available to you. Then please be flexible and adaptive in your decision. If the chosen strategy does not work as expected, be willing to treat it as a learning opportunity. Each attempt, successful or not, can reveal new information and guide you towards a better solution. Effective problem solvers do not rely on a single method, as I said before. They evaluate, they experiment, they adapt their strategies until the most effective solution emerges. That what happened to our friend Thomas Edison trying to create the electric bulb. We are told he tried so many times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, and he did it until he finally got it. And when he was asked, he said, I found ways that did not work. That is the mindset of a problem solver. So now that you have diagnosed, you have chosen a strategy, it's time to implement your strategy, which is how you solve the problem. After identifying and setting your strategy, therefore, the next step is implementation, putting your plan into action. This stage involves executing your chosen approach systematically while monitoring your progress and making adjustments as necessary. You must apply the selected strategy in a way that makes sense. Begin working on the problem using the method you determine to be the best and the most effective. Please stay organized and be deliberate in your approach. Again, monitor your progress. Pay rapt attention to feedbacks, data, and results as you move forward. Adjust your approach if new insights or obstacles emerge. Stay persistent because complex problems may require patience and multiple attempts before a satisfactory solution is achieved. And when you have done this, therefore, then look back, evaluate yourself, and do a self-reflection. Once you have completed the process, take time to review and evaluate your solution. Reflection helps you to ensure accuracy. It reinforces your learning and improves future problem-solving skills. Also, revisit that question if need be. Read the original problem carefully. Did you truly solve it? Address the issues? Or is the issue still there? Check how accurate your solutions were. Evaluate your reasonableness in the process, and please learn from the process. Effective problem solvers not only find answers, they also confirm that their solutions are valid, they are relevant, they are sustainable, and more importantly, they ensure continuous improvement with every change or every challenge they handle. But S in what we call the S in problem solving approach, which gives you 10-step approach. You rehearse a problem, you expose and challenge assumptions, you chunk up, you chunk down, you find multiple perspectives, you use effective language construct to make it very engaging, you reverse a problem, you gather facts, and you problem solve using the facts you have found. And these are interesting stuff, but I will not dwell into this because these are not this. If you want to know more about this, please Google it, ChatGPT it, and you will learn more about each of them. Also, you can solve problem by looking at it from this perspective. You start with the customer who is the end user because he or she is the owner of the problem. So you must then ask the right questions and make a proper problem statement. Develop the proper tools and procedures for your problem. Then get good ideas from everybody and everywhere. And then involve serendipity, search for multiple solutions, brainstorm with your team members, value experimentation, play, exaggeration, and even persistence. And then document what you're doing. Be innovative in your cost management and use your notes because sometimes you may need to refer back to your notes to get the answers you need. These principles are what I call the successful problem-solving innovation principle, which often require a structured yet flexible approach that encourages creativity, collaboration, and practical application. You must start with the end user, with the customer, because you must focus on their needs, their preferences, and experience of those who will benefit from your solution. Understanding the end user ensures relevance and effectiveness of your solution. Then ask the right questions and formulate a clear problem statement. When you do this, you are defining the problem precisely by asking probing questions. A well-crafted problem statement guides the solution process and prevents wasted efforts. Then you must develop the right tools and procedures by equipping yourself with appropriate methods, techniques, and frameworks to analyze and solve that problem efficiently. Then you must gather ideas from everybody and everywhere, encouraging contribution from diverse sources, colleagues, stakeholders, competitors, and even unrelated fields. Fresh perspectives often sparks innovation and innovative solutions. I remember a young man once driving his vehicle and then it was raining. I had a flat tire. I came out to change the flat tire in a hurry. He dumped the nuts, the bolts into the gutter, and then he lost the bolt. So he was struggling to find the bolts, and a madman was passing by and asked him, "What are you looking for?" He said, "The bolts of my tire." The man said, "If I were you, I would just fix my tire and go home." He said, "What will you do?" He said, "I will take one bolt from each of the left three tires, fix his tire, go back home, and then tomorrow go and buy new bolts." So from a madman, solution was obtained. You can get insight from children, from adults, from scholars, from researchers, from old men. Be open to learn from everywhere because it can spark innovative solutions. Then embrace serendipity. Be open to unexpected insights and accidental discoveries. Do you know that most of the great things that we have today were all discovered accidentally? Like your microwave, for instance, like up thrust, for instance, like gravitational force, for instance. People discover them by unexpectedly through serendipity. Sometimes the best solutions arise from chance observation. Why did this apple fall down? Why did this thing go up? Why didn't this thing sink? Why did it come up? And you ask those questions, and from there, great things happen. Then search for multiple solutions. I said earlier on today, no problem has only one solution. They always have multiple solutions. So avoid settling for the first idea that comes to your mind. It may not be the best idea. Explore alternatives to increase the likelihood of finding the most effective solution. Then brainstorm. Encourage a free flow of idea generation amongst yourself and immediate and among your partners because quality often comes from quantity. Quality usually comes from quantity. Value experimentation, play, exaggeration, and persistence to test ideas, to test new discoveries, You have to allow for experimentation. You are allowed to make mistakes and learn from them. Allow creative plays. Think boldly and persist through failures to uncover breakthrough solutions. People know about Michael Jordan, for instance, who plays basketball, and people only know about the ones he succeeded in. But he tell us that he failed several times, several times. Success comes to those who stay long enough to succeed. Therefore, failure is part of the learning curve. Persist. Use patent notes and project notes, record your ideas, experiments, and insights systematically. Document them because sometimes someone may want to steal your property, and that could be an intellectual property that one day will give you money. Please be innovative in your cost management. Don't buy things that are cheap. Buy things that are good but at a cheap price. And use notes to document your process. Now, right now, let's take some break. You'll spend the next 10 minutes looking at what problem did you solve recently and what approach did you use? What problems are you facing right now and what approach will you use? That's it. That should be will you use? Would you use? Okay. What are the common barriers you face while trying to solve problems, personal or organizational? Stop the video while addressing these questions individually and then stretch your legs, reflect, think. Remember, you have to think critically to be able to be above AI and other tech issues right now. So take the next 10 minutes and then after 10 minutes, come back and continue the video. All right, welcome back. Let's look at decision-making processes. We make decisions, as I said earlier on, to solve problems. We make decisions as a way to address and resolve the problems of our life. A decision, therefore, represents a deliberate commitment to take action. Every decision involves allocating current resources, which could be time, efforts, money, or energy, towards an uncertain future, with the expectation of achieving a desired outcome. Let me change this video a little bit. Good. I hope it's good better now. Good. So what are the kinds of decisions that we make? It could be divided into three fundamental groups: nature of approach of decisions, personality involved, and the process of making that decision. In the nature of decisions, there are two kinds of decisions: programmed and non-programmed. Programmed decisions are routine, well-structured problems that can be clearly defined and resolved using established rules, procedures, or formula. They typically require little creativity or judgment. But then there's another group called the non-programmed decisions, which involves new, unique, or complex problems that are difficult to define. There are no ready-made rules or procedures to follow. They require creativity, judgment, and analysis to determine the best course of approach. Friends, in healthcare systems, most of your decisions will be non-programmed decisions. If you're a manager or a leader, it's just mostly lower junior staff that make program decisions. There's a template, there's an SOP, there's a chart they can use. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. But when you get to the level of leadership, most of them are actually non-programmed. Also, decision could be in terms of are they personal decisions or organizational decisions. Decisions that are personal are made by a single person who assumes full responsibility for the outcome. But organizational decisions are made collectively by a group of people, maybe a team, maybe a unit within the organization, often involving collaboration, discussions, and consensus. Then you have the process, which could be autocratic to delegative. So in autocratic, you make it alone, but in delegative, you ask somebody to make it on your behalf. So these are also ways people make decisions. This framework therefore highlights that decisions differ in complexity, in scope, and method of execution, requiring appropriate strategies based on situations and contexts. That's why if you take a look, you look at the benefits, the pros and cons of individual decision making and the pros and cons of group decision making processes. For individuals, they are faster and somebody is accountable. But there are few ideas, unlike in group where it could be slower, but now there are diversity of ideas and these are critical. Also, to make a decision, you must ask if how much risk am I afford to take? There are the affordable risk, there are the irreversible risk, and there are the critical risk in every decision. Affordable is a risk that's manageable and can be undertaken without significant consequences. If things go wrong, no big deal. The effects are minor and easily reversible. But an irreversible risk, these are decisions where failure could cause serious or permanent harm, but still you have to make the decision. So such risk requires you to make careful evaluation before you move forward. For instance, you want to do a brain surgery, for instance. Maybe you want to do a spinal surgery, for instance. Maybe you want to install a new equipment, for instance. This may have irreversible risk component. But critical risk actually are high stake risk that is essential for the survival or the success of the system. So although they are high, but they are essential, you must take them. Why it carries significant potential consequences, avoiding it may pose an even greater threat to objectives or long-term viability of your company. For instance, do we adopt AI right now or do we wait? That is a critical risk. Understanding these categories will help you make decisions that are balanced, balancing caution with boldness, ensuring resources and efforts are applied wisely. So, what is that decision-making process? Four main factors. You must determine the nature of the decision. Is it programmed or non-programmed? You must decide who makes decision, individual or organization. Then you must determine the process. Should it be authoritative, autocratic, or delegative? You must identify who will participate in that decision-making process, because some may only give advice, some may be you may need to consult some people, you may even need to analyze people's opinions before the final decisions. And so once you decide, then in making decisions, therefore, there are 4 or 5 ways decisions are made. It could be autocratic, one person decides, and that's all. To be minority decides, a small group of experts make the decision and others accept it. It could be majority decides, in which the majority determines what happens, like in elections, for instance. It could be a consensus where all participants must be on the same side before a decision is made. Or it could also be a delegation where you delegate somebody else to decide for you, where you give somebody authority to make decisions on your behalf. These approaches are critical in every decision: autocratic, minority, majority, consensus, or delegation. So good organizations make decisions through the use of diverse views, diverse experiences, diverse values, diverse qualifications, and diverse interests and motives. That way, people say that there is strength in diversity. When more people are involved, when views are many, you have multiple options, multiple ideas, and you are able to make the best decision. But when you compress all this into one single silo, you may even have multiple people involved, but still one single decision is taken, because that could be because of either a group thing or whatever. People are afraid to air their views, and the organization will suffer for it. So, what are the 6 fundamental decision-making approaches? 1 is rational approach, 2 is satisficing approach, 3 is intuition approach, 4 is incremental, 5 is evidence-based approach, and the last is garbage can approach. And I'll just spend some few minutes on them right now before I just run through the slides. In the rational approach, friends, it involves a logical, systematic process of evaluating alternatives and selecting the option that maximizes the benefits or achieve the best outcome. It relies on clear problem solving, clear problem definition, clear objective analysis, and careful comparison of choices. But in satisficing approach, rather than trying to get the whole optimal solution, this method says aim as something that is good enough to meet minimum criteria. It balances efficiency with practicality, especially when time or resources are highly limited. So you don't have all the information. You don't have enough money. So do what is good enough. That is satisfying. Then in intuition, you're using your red heart. What do you think about it? What does your God tell you? Yeah, you based on your instincts, experience, or gut feeling rather than formal analysis. This approach can be very valuable when information is incomplete again, when time is limited, or the decision involves highly complex human factors. Actually, our ladies have a way of maximizing this in decision-making processes. While men could be very rational, ladies are mostly very, very intuitive, and most times their intuition does not fail. So value it. Then there's an incremental approach. It's just like you're satisficing, you're having a good enough, but here you're saying, I will go through a modern true approach. It involves making small, gradual decisions rather than radical changes at the same time. So you make small, you move to the next level, make another one. It involves risk. It reduces your risk and allows for adjustments as outcomes are observed. So rather than making one bold decision to build a hospital, you say, okay, let's buy the land first. Let's do the drawing. Let's really lay the foundation. Let's get the team together. So you're making incremental decision towards building a hospital. Then I say the evidence-based approach. This is the most interesting style because it is grounded in the best available data, research, and factual evidence. This approach emphasizes critical evaluation of information that you have at your disposal to ensure informed and reliable outcome. But friends, if you're not careful, you may end up suffering from what they call analysis paralysis because you're waiting for all the evidence and you may never, ever get all the evidence. Then the final one is garbage can approach. Common in complex or ambiguous organizations, this approach treats decisions as somewhat random or opportunistic. Problems, solutions, and decision makers are seen as independent streams that come together by chance, leading to unpredictable outcomes. Friends, each approach has its advantages and limitations. Effective decision makers often combine multiple approaches depending on the contents, the urgency, the risk, the availability of information, and also the availability of resources. So I mentioned this earlier on. The rational approach, you're looking at how to make decisions in a logical manner based on deliberate analysis. You monitor your decision environment, you define the decision problems, you specify your objectives, you make a diagnosis of the problem, you develop alternative solutions, you evaluate your alternatives, you choose best alternatives, and then you implement your chosen alternatives. This approach involves a logical, systematic process of evaluating alternatives and selecting the option that maximizes benefits or achieves the best outcome. It relies on clear problem definition, objective analysis, and careful comparison of choices. But we have an issue. It's called bounded rationality. Why? Because human capacity for rational thinking is limited or bounded. While people strive as much as they can to make a rational decision, several factors can constrain their ability to process information fully. Why? Because individuals can only absorb and analyze a finite amount of data at any given time. Why? Because people can realistically consider only a limited number of possibilities or courses of action. Why? Because personal experiences, emotions, cognitive biases, and external pressures can affect judgment, make decisions appear less rational. And because of all these limitations, the rational approach cannot always be applied perfectly. As a result, decision makers must rely on alternative approaches, such as statistics, intuition, incremental approach, or even evidence-based methods to navigate complex problems. and arrive at workable solutions. Friends, bounded rationality highlights the importance of flexibility, adaptability, and the use of diverse decision-making strategies in real-world situations. So let's go to the second one, satisficing approach. Again, I mentioned it earlier on that here you're trying to just do what is good enough. It was developed by Herbert Simeon, who recognized the limitations of human decision-making approach using the rational approach. It is based on the understanding that individuals cannot always make perfect rational decisions to maximize outcomes. So you search for limited alternatives. You make selections early enough to achieve a good enough outcome, minimum criteria, and then you focus on the sufficiency of what you have done to make sure that you are able to solve at least part of the problem using your approach. Then the intuition I mentioned earlier on, when time is short, problems are complex, precedents do not exist, facts are scarce, there are no program decisions needed. So you use your intuition, your experience, your insights to make decisions. And friends, this works in a number of situations. Then in incremental, you're doing a trial and error. You begin with initial small decisions, then you move to the next level, then to the next level, then to the next level. You pause, you restart, you back up, you just do trial and error. The goal is to minimize risk and to maximize outputs. So you also trying to save time by making smaller decisions and moving from there. Then the evidence base is actually a form of rational approach, but here you're looking at a deep dive into the available evidence. But remember the concept of bounded rationality. It can hinder you from getting the best out of this. However, evidence base is critical in healthcare management and in science. Then garbage can approach chaotic, but with results where people believe in opportunities and believe in chance occurrences. But friends, no good organization want to make decisions with a garbage can approach. This is messy, it's organic, it's non-bureaucratic, it's freewheeling. So it can give you good results or bad results, but there are no systems, there are no strategies. So be careful about this. That's why you must look at two key issues. Decision-making tools could be for selection or for analysis. The selections help you to select a good technique out of several, then to analyze that good technique and see whether it is good for the work you are about to do. And these are the tools to make decisions. Option one, the Pareto analysis selects the most important changes to make. It's called the 80-20 rule. It suggests that 80% of our efforts come from 20% of our courses. It helps you to prioritize your decisions. In paired comparison, you're evaluating the relative importance of different options, assessing how one option affects is better or less than the other. It helps to make decisions when you rank them in terms of first and second. Then the grid analysis is very useful when you have multiple factors like what car to buy, and looking at multiple factors like cost of the car, cost of maintenance, cost of gas, cost of repairs, and maybe the second-hand values, maybe the comfort of the vehicle, maybe the prestige. When you're looking at multiple factors, then you can use a grid analysis. Then the plus minus interesting PMI is also very interesting. What are the pros, the plus? What are the cons, the minuses? And what is interesting about this issue, for instance, or who you want to marry, where you want to work, where you want to live, what car you want to drive, you can use a PMI to analyze that. And finally, you can use a decision tree as well for that analysis, choosing between options based on outcome variables and the strength of those outcomes. So I have a number of slides after this, which you can take your time, stop the system, and just run through them. But I'm just giving you a fundamental insight into what they are. Now, in option B, analyzing your decision, you can use a four-field analysis, the six thinking hard, the star boxing, the step ladder techniques, or even the cost benefit analysis. The first field analysis actually examines the forces for and against the change. By identifying and evaluating these pressures, decision maker can develop strategies to strengthen support and reduce obstacles for successful implementation. The six thinking and look at the six hearts: the blue heart, the yellow heart, the green heart, the red heart, the white heart, and the black heart. Each of these, the blue is called the process control heart, the red intuition, the yellow is optimism, green is creativity, white is facts, and black is criticism. So these six hearts are critical and allow you to have a multi-perspective approach in analyzing decision and then looking at them for the facts, emotions, critical judgment, positive judgment, creativity, and process control components. For star busting, you're looking at issues from multiple dimensions. For instance, you're generating questions and answering them. Why this? What is this? Actually, people look at it from the 5+1 Ws. What, why, when, where, with, and how, or who and how. These questions, when you answer all these questions, you're doing a step busting approach. Then the step ladder is very interesting because you're using this to include people into your decision step by step. You get the first person, he or she agrees. Two of you go to the second person. Then you have three in your group. Then two of you go to the next person. Now you have four. And that way, when you present the issue in an open space, your partners will support the decision, and then the whole house will say yes to you. Then you can also look at cost benefit analysis, which is very important. It's the cost of the decision. What's the decision, for instance? If the benefit is not higher than the cost, then it's not worth it in the first place. But if the benefit is far higher than the decision, then than the cost, then you're on the right track. So just take a time, stop the clock, stop the video, and read this into yourself: the Pareto, the PET comparison, the grid analysis, the plus minus interesting, the force field analysis, the six thinking hats, the white, the red, the yellow, the black, the green, the blue hats, the star busting techniques, the step ladder approach, and the cost benefit analysis. I've added these slides so that if you want to dive deeper, want to learn more about it, they're all here for you. So stop the video, read through them, and then continue the video after reading through them. And then your decision tree, which has been so interesting over the years. This is actually the only one that has significant calculations. Apart from this, and maybe the grid analysis, others have no calculations around them. But this is actually very interesting concepts that you have to spend some time to learn. So, what are the barriers to effective decisions? One is people's unwillingness to confront the problem or to face the real problem. People sometimes create their own problem because they are unwilling to face the real problem. Two is people's inability to admit errors in past decisions. You have to learn from the mistakes you have made so that the mistakes will not define you. Then you have to people trying to minimize the problem. Oh, it's not a big deal. It's just something simple. Be careful in minimizing problem because sometimes they can grow and become so big and difficult to handle. Also, when you do a poor problem diagnosis, you don't really understand what the problem is, then you can't really solve it. Or when you are so hasty in making your decisions, or you're not even willing to accept people's suggestions, advice, and counsel, or your risk adverse, because in every decision, in every problem-solving approach, risk are included. You must accept the risk. Or you're just living on wishful thinking with unrealistic expectations or optimism. This could be hindrances and barriers to your solving problem approach. Also, accepting only favorable information. Those accepting people who say what you want to hear and refusing those who say what you don't want to hear. Rejecting useful information based because of its source. Maybe the person who says it's somebody you like, or somebody you hate, or somebody who hurt you in time past. Or you're just biased. You have your own personal agenda and there's conflict of interest. Or there's some organizational politics and power play that hinders you from making the right choices, or you're not involving the right people in making the decisions, or even you're using inappropriate approach. I'm giving you a plethora of approaches right now, but you're using an inappropriate approach for a particular kind of problem. Or there's the danger of groupthink where people are afraid to speak their mind. So whatever the boss said, that's what we're able to say yes to. There's conformity. People are playing it safe. People don't want to be singled out, or people are just copycat thinking. Any of these can become major hindrances to effective decision making. So let me ask you a question. Which of these barriers are common in your organization? Which decision making approach will you prefer to use moving forward? Which technique will you use for analysis? Which technique will you use for selection? This is the time to begin to define who you are and how you want to move forward solving problems. So, another 10 minutes break right now. So, what decision did you make recently and what approach did you use? What decisions do you need to make and what approach will you use? What are the common barriers you face in making decisions? So, stop the clock, stop the video, and then attempt these questions and take a walk. Take 10 minutes. Get a cup of coffee. Get some water. Refresh yourself, and then come back. All right, welcome back. Now that you have been able to solve problems, make decisions, let's look at what are the factors you need to solve problems and make decisions. One of the fundamental factors is data and knowledge. You need the right kind of data, and you need access to knowledge to solve problems and make decisions. So, friends, it's all about data. In leadership, data is everything. Data is the crude oil that runs the system. Without accurate, verified, appropriate, and timely data, you cannot effectively run your systems. That's why you must collect data. It's a collection of pieces of information from patients, from workers, from everybody around you. And each management involves several activities. You collect, you verify, you coordinate, you validate, you integrate, and then you are also able to control your data requirements so you don't collect what you don't need. And then you store, you retrieve, you disseminate, and you dispose if no longer needed. It's important to understand that data management is critical in both problem solving and decision making. What are the two types of data? It could be quantitative or qualitative. And quantitative data could be from internal sources or external sources. And this could be from the patient's file, from the finance file, from staff files, from databases, from records you have, from your storecards, your dashboards, or it could be external from public reports, from government's websites, from databases of government, and from surveys that government have done. And we've discussed some of them earlier on. Or it could be qualitative also, interviews, focus groups, conversation with patients and people and stakeholders inside and outside the organization. Both quantitative and qualitative also come from patient satisfaction surveys, for instance, staff evaluations. You do these activities and then you pick up data from there and analyze them and use them to move your organization forward. And there are important things you must understand in data management. Database, which is an organized set of files for a specific purpose, like the PubMed Central, their database system. Google Scholar is not really the database, but you have Cochrane, for instance. You have several databases from which you can get information. Then you have the raw data, which is refine data, the entire set of information before you code them, edit them, clean them, and manipulate them. Then data cleaning involves you trying to look at incomplete data and make sure that they are complete. Looking at inconsistencies, looking at inaccurate records, and before you start your analysis. Because if you don't clean up your data, you may end up having outliers or wrong entries that can actually distort your whole analysis. Then you process your data, and then from there, you're able to make inferences, and that can lead to decisions. And so also you can reduce the data from large data files to smaller files. You summarize them. And nowadays, you can actually use things like AI to reduce the data. Then you have data dredging, which is trying to fish out things from the data itself, trying to find out important insights that you can pursue from that data. Then you can mine your data, getting further information from a very large database. And again, AI can help you in all these processes. So what are the five fundamental things you do in data management? One, you collect data, then you store the data, then you process it, then you analyze, and then you present your information. And in previous classes, I've shown you how to present your data on bar charts, on pie charts, on histograms, on spot maps, on line graphs, on as narratives, as tables. And we've already discussed that in previous classes. So when you are analyzing data, you can actually do three fundamental analysis. It could be descriptive, prescriptive, or predictive. Descriptive analysis summarizes and condenses large volume of data into meaningful insights. It helps decision makers understand what has happened and provides you with a foundation for solving problems and making informed choices. Prescriptive analysis also, and on the other hand, goes a step further by recommending actionable solutions and questions that could be solved. It does not only analyze data, but also suggests the best course of action to address specific problems or questions. Then in predictive analytics, you're not prescribing solutions, you're predicting the future. You're using historical data, models, and machine learning to forecast the likelihood of a future event or outcome. This approach therefore helps to anticipate challenges, opportunities, and risks, enabling proactive decision-making processes. Together, descriptive, prescriptive, and predictive approaches gives you a comprehensive toolkit for informed, evidence-based, and strategic decision-making. And so the examples of descriptive, recent, your performance, financial, number of patients seen, their characteristics, their demographics, for instance. Predictive, for instance, which patient might use emergency department care. That is predictive. What are the characteristics of women that have complications in pregnancy? Predictive. What kind of students will go into medical field? Predictive. Or it could be prescriptive. What is the optimal staffing of a hospital environment? What is the optimal number of students in my class? These are all prescriptive. So, well done. You've gone through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Now take another 10 minutes break. Refresh yourself and ask these simple questions. What kinds of data are you familiar with? And how do you use data at work and at home? How do you use data in your finances? How do you use data in your academics? How do you use data in your family life and in where you work? Take 10 minutes. Stop to learn. All right. Welcome back. Now we are on the home stretch. Thank you for staying with me for this number of minutes to hours so far. I'm sure that you've learned something about problems, about decisions, and about data. So let us look at knowledge management right now as we begin to close this session. Now, knowledge is so critical in decision-making and problem solving. And knowledge management is therefore a systematic approach to finding, organizing, storing, and making an organizational knowledge accessible to improve decision makings, innovation, efficiency, and problem solving. And there are two kinds of knowledge, the codified knowledge and the tacit knowledge. In codified, these are documented and easily communicated, such as your reports, your annuals, manuals, your SOPs, your instructions, your policies, your rules. It is structured, it is formal, it is readable and shared across the organization. But there is also the tacit knowledge, which is just in people's heads. Knowledge that resides in the mind of individuals, people that have organizational histories in their mind, organizational stories in their mind. Some of these are not documented. It includes insights, judgment, skills, and experience. It is often difficult to articulate, difficult to capture, and difficult to share. But it represents a unique and valuable resource that can give your organization a competitive advantage over others. Effective knowledge management, friends, combines both codified and tacit knowledge. That way, when people come to your company, you want them to shadow somebody, work with somebody, learn from somebody, because they have tacit knowledge that are not documented. And that's why organization must leverage its collective expertise to become the best they can be in solving problems and making decisions. So who are the stakeholders in the health system? Internal, external stakeholders. Because management is all about stakeholder satisfaction. You are employed to make people happy, patients and other stakeholders. And so a stakeholder is a member or an individual that is important in the organization where you work. An individual, a group, or an entity whose support is so essential for the survival and the success of your organization. Stakeholders have vested interest in the organization and can influence or be influenced by its operations, decisions, and performance. Here are the key points you must remember: that there are different kinds of stakeholders, internal and external stakeholders, and they have different roles, different impacts, and also different needs and influence on the organization. And it is your responsibility as a leader, it is your responsibility as a manager to manage your stakeholders. So in internal stakeholders, you have the staff, the employees. Then the externals are the patients and their families, the suppliers, the government and regulatory agencies, professional bodies, credential organizations, local communities, non-profits, unions, and others. Actually, unions are part of staff, the internal unions, but also the external unions that can influence what you do in your organization. I also have competitors and other businesses in the community, insurance companies, bankers, financial, technological tech companies. These are all external stakeholders that affects what you do. What do you do with your stakeholders? You manage them. But to manage them, you must classify them first. How much power do they have, and how much interest do they have in your organization? Those that have significant power and significant interest, you must manage them closely. You must manage them closely. If they have significant power and significant interest, you must manage them closely. Those that have significant power but little interest, you keep them satisfied. That way they will not hurt your organization. Those that have high interest but minimal power, you keep them informed. But their interest is just how much information do they need, find it and give it to them. But those that have low power and low interest, you just monitor them. This is how you must first therefore classify or categorize your stakeholders into high power, high interest, high power, low interest, high interest, low power, low interest, to be able to effectively manage them. For instance, your patients, where should they fall in? Your staff, where should they fall in? Your stakeholders, where should they fall in? So I'm not sorry, your shareholders, where should they fall in? The family members of your parents, where should they fall in? You should know who has high interest, who has high power, and who has both, because that will help you to manage your stakeholders appropriately. Identifying and assessing them is critical, and managing them is crucial to your success. Remember that you're employed primarily to satisfy your stakeholders. So you have to mobilize them. And this involves building relationship with your stakeholders based on trust, respect, and mutual benefit. This involves listening to their feedbacks on a regular basis. This involves acknowledging their contribution to your organization. This involves appreciating their support and recognizing their achievements. When you do this, you are on your track to satisfying your stakeholders. The management of stakeholders, therefore, is a process, not an act, by which you as a manager organizes, you monitors, you improves your relationship with all your stakeholders, from the patient to their family, to the shareholders, to the banks, to the suppliers, to your consultants, to everyone that you interface with. You have a responsibility to satisfy them and satisfy their needs. How do you make your patients happy? You must satisfy them through quality services, reduction in waiting time, availability of support services, good patient navigation processes, and actually affordable care. If you do these things, for instance, when you do your patient satisfaction survey, you get a very high score. But if you don't do these things, you get a very low score. And friends, it's not good for your organization. That's also why, as patients come into your hospital, when they're leaving, you can do an exit interview to find out how was today's experience? How was it? How did the doctors, the nurses, the staff treat you? Are you happy? What can we do better? What can we improve upon? What should we stop doing? Those exit interviews allows you to improve upon your processes. And government are always there to regulate what you're doing. So that's why if you're in the health system, governmental regulations are critical. They provide accreditation, credentials, they rate you, and they watch whether you're complying with stuff or not, like HIPAA compliance, for instance. And also there's ongoing DEI issues and EEO issues, equal employment opportunity for everybody, and then diversity, equity, and inclusion concept. Although right now DEI are going through some modification with federal government, but it will always be an issue in our health systems. You must ensure that nobody is left behind, that everybody's included, that you run an inclusive environment, and that you do not segregate against any tribe, ethnic, nationality, or even sexual orientation. That is what you do as a leader, and that's how you keep yourself free from litigations. So, finally, who is responsible for managing the stakeholders? Do you know? It's you. It is you. Are you skilled? Are you capable of managing these diverse interests of internal and external stakeholders? Have you learned enough tonight to be able to solve problems, make quality decisions, both in official capacity and also at private level, in your homes, in your academics, where you work, amongst your friends? Did you learn something today about data, quantitative and qualitative data systems, about how to collect them, how to analyze them, how to draw inferences from them? What about knowledge management, the concept of tacit and codified knowledge, and how you can transfer it from one generation to the next? And finally, your stakeholders, your patients, your internal, your external stakeholders. Your staff is critical. Happy staff lead to happy patients. So you have a responsibility to ensure that your staff, they are happy, then they can make your clients happy. I know you have questions, but I can't respond to your questions now. So I'll wait until our next class to respond to your questions. Have a beautiful evening. Enjoy your nights. And please take care of your assignment and your exercises. And see you in class next week.